Welcome back to another episode of Understanding People, Relationships, Communication and Psychology. I'm Watson, and in today's episode, we're going to take a deep dive into one of the most complex, yet incredibly important aspects of adult life: our relationships and communication. Whether it's with a partner, a friend, a coworker, or even a family member, how we connect with others shapes who we are, our mental health, and our daily lives. But here's the thing, most of us struggle with communication at some point or another. It could be misunderstanding a simple text, dealing with conflict in a relationship, or feeling unheard in important conversations. If any of that sounds familiar, then you're definitely in the right place. Today, we're going to be exploring the psychology behind adult relationships, how we communicate, why we struggle, and what we can do to improve. I'll also bring in insights from psychological theories, research, and even the DSM-5, which is a vital diagnostic tool used by mental health professionals. But don't worry, I'll keep it clear and easy to follow. Before we get into the meat of today's topic, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, and share this podcast with anyone who might benefit. If you stick around to the end, we're going to offer some practical tips that you can immediately apply to improve the relationships in your life. Let's get started. Why relationships matter in adulthood. Let's first talk about why adult relationships are so crucial. As children, our primary relationships, those with our parents and caregivers, are foundational. They teach us how to love, how to trust, and how to communicate. But as we grow into adults, we often face new challenges in our relationships. We move away from home, start families of our own, build careers, and face the ups and downs of adulthood. What happens then is that our relationships become even more complex. We're no longer just children relying on our parents for emotional support, but adults navigating friendships, romantic relationships, professional dynamics, and sometimes even dealing with the loss of close family members. As we grow older, we must adapt our communication skills and emotional intelligence. But not all of us know how to do this. Now, according to attachment theory, which was first developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, our early childhood experiences with caregivers shape how we approach relationships in adulthood. If we had secure attachments, meaning our caregivers were responsive and consistent, then we're likely to develop a healthy sense of trust in others and have positive relationship patterns as adults. On the other hand, if we had insecure or disorganized attachments, we might find it more challenging to trust others and may struggle with communication or managing conflicts in relationships. This brings us to the first psychological concept we need to understand: attachment styles. If you've never heard of them before, you might want to listen closely, as this could change the way you look at your own relationships. Attachment styles, what they mean for you. So, what exactly are attachment styles, and how do they affect our adult relationships? Attachment theory divides our behaviors and emotional patterns into 4 primary attachment styles: 1. Secure attachment. 2. Anxious attachment. 3. Avoidant attachment. 4. Disorganized attachment. Let's start with secure attachment. People with this attachment style feel comfortable with intimacy, trust others easily, and are generally balanced in their approach to relationships. They communicate openly, express their needs clearly, and don't fear rejection. As adults, they're often able to maintain healthy relationships, manage conflict with relative ease, and demonstrate empathy toward their partners. Then there's anxious attachment. People who fall under this category often crave closeness but are also fearful of abandonment. They can become overly dependent on their partners for validation and reassurance. In relationships, they may need constant reassurance that they are loved or accepted, which can sometimes lead to heightened conflict or emotional volatility. Next, we have avoidant attachment. Those with this style often struggle with intimacy. They value independence highly and may shut down emotionally or pull away when relationships get too close. They may find it difficult to express their feelings or deal with vulnerability, which can result in emotional distance or avoidance of conflict. Finally, there's disorganized attachment, which often stems from inconsistent caregiving in childhood. Adults with this attachment style might have unpredictable behavior in relationships. They might push someone away when they need affection or cling to them when they want space. This leads to chaotic or unstable relationship patterns. The fascinating part here is that these attachment styles can be learned, unlearned, or shifted with time, therapy, and self-awareness. So if you've been noticing patterns in your relationships that mirror one of these attachment styles, it's an opportunity to learn and grow. But that's not the only psychological factor at play when it comes to our relationships. Let's now talk about communication, another crucial piece of the puzzle. Communication breakdown, how we talk versus how we listen. Communication is often at the core of relationship issues. And let's be honest, sometimes we don't even realize that we're not communicating effectively. It's not just about what we say, but how we say it, when we say it, and what our body language communicates in the process. A lot of times, communication in relationships breaks down because we're not listening well. Active listening, where you give full attention to the speaker, don't interrupt, and respond thoughtfully, is an essential skill, yet many adults struggle with it. According to psychological studies, when we don't practice active listening, we create emotional distance between ourselves and the person we're interacting with. Another common issue in communication is nonverbal communication. Our body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice often say more than our words. For example, you might say "I'm fine" while crossing your arms, rolling your eyes, or speaking with a sharp tone. These mixed messages confuse the listener and can lead to misunderstandings. Moreover, emotional flooding is something many adults experience in high-stakes conversations, especially during conflicts. Emotional flooding refers to a state where our emotions overwhelm our ability to think clearly. When we feel flooded, our fight-or-flight response kicks in, making it harder to engage in calm, constructive communication. That's when we may say things we regret, or worse, shut down completely. So, what can we do about it? First off, awareness is key. Being mindful of our emotional triggers, practicing active listening, and taking breaks during intense conversations can help improve how we communicate. If you feel yourself getting flooded, take a step back, breathe, and give yourself time to regroup before continuing the discussion. Navigating conflict, the psychology of healthy disagreements. Conflict is inevitable in any relationship. It's not about avoiding disagreements, but learning how to navigate them in a healthy way. According to the DSM-5, conflict in relationships can sometimes result in psychological distress, particularly if the conflict triggers deeply rooted emotional wounds. One approach to managing conflict is understanding the difference between constructive and destructive conflict. Constructive conflict is when both parties are focused on resolving the issue at hand. Destructive conflict, on the other hand, often involves blame, defensiveness, and sometimes, even contempt. Psychologists like John Gottman have done extensive research on relationships, and one of his findings is that contempt, the feeling of disdain or disgust toward your partner, is one of the most destructive forces in relationships. So, how can we avoid falling into these toxic patterns? First, focus on de-escalation. When tensions rise, it's essential to remain calm and avoid raising your voice or saying things you don't mean. Keep your language neutral, and focus on using I statements instead of you statements. For example, saying "I feel hurt when" is less accusatory than "you always make me feel." Lastly, try to repair the conversation when things go wrong. Repair attempts are small gestures that help calm down an argument, like saying you're sorry, asking for a break, or making a joke. These moments of repair are essential to maintaining connection during conflict. Putting it all together. Alright, we've covered a lot today. From understanding attachment styles to improving communication and handling conflict, we've discussed the key psychological factors that influence adult relationships. But the most important takeaway here is that relationships require ongoing work and self-awareness. No one is perfect, and every relationship has its challenges. The key is knowing when to step back, reflect, and adjust your approach. So, here's the challenge for you: take a moment today to reflect on your own relationships. What communication patterns have you noticed in yourself? How do you handle conflict? And most importantly, what small steps can you take to improve your connection with others? If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights into the psychology of relationships. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, understanding yourself is the first step toward understanding others.